Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Wednesday episode of Star Wars Lads. This week, we are doing another tier list. It's been about 5 weeks since we've done our last one, and we're going to do a little shorter one this time because our last few have been a little longer, where we talked about bounty hunters last time, before dark side power rankings and Jedi power rankings, and it's been a lot of content in there. So we're doing a more structured one that I can't pick really random things to put in, and this is going to be our Star Wars score tier list. So this will be the scores for the films and not including the TV shows or any made for TV movies or anything like that. We might do one for some themes later. I think that's a good place to bring in some of the TV show stuff, because the Mandalorian theme is great, but it's really hard to compare, 8 hours of music versus 2 hours of music. So I think we're going to focus purely on the 12 theatrically released films in Star Wars. But before we get started, please hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel for Star Wars content minimum 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you haven't checked out the Monday video this week, it was a history of Star Wars part 1. It covered all of the Star Wars releases in books, comics, miniseries, TV, everything basically that has released in Star Wars from 1976 to 1983 during the original trilogy era. Check that out if you're interested. There will be more parts in later months covering the rest of it until we get to the modern day. So check that video out and stay tuned for Friday for another video. So now let's bring in the tier list here. We usually I'd like to do quotes for the tiers, but the music, I felt, keep it straightforward. There's not really a bad Star Wars score. Like, there's lesser Star Wars scores, but all of them are good, mostly because 9 of the 12 are John Williams, and he contributed on the 10th. So we've got the top 3. Usually we do the top 5 in S, but there's only 12 options, so we're doing 3 only. A is the exceptional scores. B is the great scores. C, very good. D, just good. I don't even have a bad option here. So just keep in mind, if your favorite score is in D, we're not saying it's a bad score. It's just lesser in terms of the Star Wars score rankings. Most of these are better than most average scores out there. So let's kick it off. We're going to do it in release order. So we're going to start with Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. We can we'll debate back and forth on where we think we should put this. I'm going to go ahead right here and say this is going in S. This is a top 3 for me. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yes, it's top 3. It very narrowly could drop down to A, but the original is special because it's the original. It's hard to really top it. It's the perfect culmination of, once it gets going, man. Once it gets going, that film just is something else.
Exactly. We have the original version of the Star Wars theme, which is so iconic, one of the most iconic pieces of music, maybe in music history, let alone film history. We have the Binary Sunset, which a lot of people call the Force theme. We have Leia's theme. We have the Battle of Yavin theme with the Death Star. There's so many great pieces of music in here. Even the end credits of the award ceremony is a great song too. So I think this movie is arguably the greatest score of all time because of what it did. I think when you're comparing it in context with other Star Wars scores, you can put other Star Wars scores higher, but when you're comparing it to film history, it's hard to argue against Star Wars. So let's move on to Empire Strikes Back. I think that was an easy one for us.
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back, I would also say, is S.
Yeah, I put it as like an S plus if there was a chance. Just it's so good. It's very rare that you see a sequel that's better than the original.
That's true. And it's got the Imperial March, which I think if you want to pick between the original Star Wars main title theme and the Imperial March, one of those two is probably the most iconic piece of music in film history. So it has to go an S purely because of that song alone. But the asteroid field chase is great. Yoda's theme is great. I go back to that one a lot. So yeah, the music in this movie is phenomenal. So let's move on to Return of the Jedi. I felt like we were going to knock those two out pretty easily. They were probably going to be in the top tier. Now, picking the last one that's going to go in S is going to be really tough. And really picking where the rest of these go is going to be tough, because I think everything kind of follows in the footsteps of both The New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. And Return of the Jedi, for me, has some good themes. I love the Emperor's Throne Room theme. I think that's a very subtle one, but one that works really, really well. The Battle of Endor theme is also very good. The fight between Luke and Vader, when it ramps up to the end when Luke kind of goes crazy on him and cuts off Vader's hand. I think that theme works really well as well in the context of the film. But this is easily my least favorite of the original trilogy scores. It doesn't do anything that's like a must listen. Like it doesn't have the Imperial March or Binary Sunset or the main title theme for the first time. It's got a lot of good music, but I don't know if I would say any of it is exceptional.
I have a lot of problems with this film, and I wouldn't say the music is like the biggest issue for me. Yeah, I think I do enjoy a lot of the stuff with Jabba's Palace. I like the sail barge music.
Hmm.
Um, I do know that a lot of that has been changed over time because of special editions and whatnot.
Yeah,
I
Yub
think the
Nub.
new Yubnub, yeah. I mean, the end music is better, I'd say, now than it was originally. I know people might find that more accurate, but I think instead of that worked as good like source music, this works. The new one, the celebration song now kind of works better as score music for the whole original 6 films, especially.
Yeah,
But there isn't anything that like keeps me in that film because of the sound of it. So I don't know. I'd say for now a B.
that's where I was going with B.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think it's all good Star Warsy music. Like when you're watching the movie, you're into it. It's not like there's any tracks that stand out as bad or
Oh,
just
yeah.
average. It's just doesn't have anything that really goes, that is like one I want to listen to all the time. It's kind of just solid. And the Emperor's Throne Room, I think, is the biggest standout, just because that's a track that's reused over and over again. But again, doesn't do anything too crazy. So the Phantom Menace is one that I think there's some controversy over the Phantom Menace. I mean, personally, Duel of the Fates. There's also a track called Qui-Gon's Noble End, which I think is fantastic, even though it spoiled the movie initially. There's also a lot of the Trade Federation music I think is pretty good. The pod race scene doesn't have any music for the first half, but then the last lap has some really good music. Everything is really good about this score. This is honestly in my top, I would say in my top 4 favorite scores. I don't know if I would put it in S, but I would fight for A.
I'm not even gonna fight you on A. It is an A.
Okay,
It
good.
it's a great score. I'll be honest. I think Duel of the Fates is top 3 all time. There are some weaker things. I'm trying to think. Like I think when I think of the Phantom Menace, I think it's a film that has actually great just sound design. It has a good score, obviously, but it has honestly more like just overall sound. Like when I think of just the whole pod racing sequence, right? When you
Mhm.
can hear the engines, it's hot rods at its best. I'd say the droid invasion stuff is pretty nice. That one really sets the mood, even if the movie doesn't play it out
Mhm.
in the same way necessarily. Oh, I do like when Padme meets Anakin. I do like
Mhm.
that one. I think there's something ethereal about it that kind of strikes the right balance that I look for in that film, especially in like when it gets a little bit duller at some points because a lot of the songs do feel like they flow at points, but when they don't flow, they're like knockouts. They like really bring you into the film. So I'd say a strong A.
Okay, yeah, completely agree. So we're on the same page so far. Attack of the Clones is another one. I used to call this one of my least favorite Star Wars scores. I think it's not A or S for me. I would say it's probably B where I'm looking at it right now, but I think I might like it a little bit more than Return of the Jedi, purely because of Across the Stars. Then there's the Camino music with Obi-Wan. There's a lot of interesting tracks here. The arena and the Battle of Geonosis, a lot of that stuff is really good. But I think especially because it has Across the Stars, that track is like actually kind of iconic. Like it's very, very good. And it's the theme of Attack of the Clones. So to me, because it has like an identifiable theme where Return of the Jedi doesn't, I think I would list it ahead of that. But B is where I'm looking for that Attack of the Clones.
I almost want to give this like an A minus if that were possible.
Yeah.
I love Across the Stars. That's a just a pure banger. This is Yeah, I do like a lot of the stuff with Django. Like I love the escape music when he's fighting
Mhm.
Obi-Wan. Um, I do love the love pledge when Anakin and Padme confesses her love, and Anakin is like, "Okay, great, we'll go for it. We're gonna die anyways." I actually do like a lot of the fight with Dooku, the music
Mhm.
there. I think
We can put
I'll
it in
get
A, and
I'll
for
put it at
now,
the end of A for now. I can see it drop down when I think about them, but I'll yeah, let's put it at A for now.
okay, yeah, let's. Completely okay with that because I would definitely put it ahead of Return of the Jedi. So Revenge of the Sith, I think this would be the other one I would fight for with S, and I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but this movie has so many great themes. Whether it's it's I think it's Padme's ruminations. Is that the one where Anakin and Padme are looking across at each, or like through the Force at each other, from the Jedi Temple and her apartment on Coruscant? I love that theme. Order 66 is tragic. It's so good. Battle of Heroes is one of my favorites as well. Even all the opening music at the beginning of the film is great. I think this is one of the more complete Star Wars scores. I think like Duel of the Fates, I think is a better track than anything on this. But I think taking everything on here, it's hard to go against it compared to the
Mm.
rest of the ones I have on here.
Look, we just had the Kenobi trailer, so I would want to disagree with you there, but they did choose Duel of the Fates for a reason. That just the peaks of Duel of the Fates are da, 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 like it's when you hear the voices just go off that you're like,
Mhm.
oh, this is different. This isn't gay. Like I can only imagine people in '99 just going like, "What is this? This is not the Star Wars music I want." And then 5 seconds later, they're like, "Holy, that's like insane! It's incredible." Um, but I will say, I will say that Battle of the Heroes is personally my favorite, and it also was in the Kenobi trailer, so it has an importance to it. The opening shots of like when the Ada class starfighters are coming down,
Yeah,
and
so
it's
good.
like boom, 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 boom. It just you spring right into that. Anakin versus Obi-Wan is so good too. It's just it does seem that there are some parts of it that are a little similar to Battle of the Heroes, but
Yeah,
still a
they merge
banger.
together in the film too. They both are.
Yeah. Anakin's Dark Deeds is underrated though. I will
Mhm.
say that. Because like when I was thinking about Star Wars and A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, I I can't really list those track names, even though they're way more iconic in a way.
Right.
Maybe because we grew up with them, maybe because this was like the pinnacle of our childhood. Like this is the end of the prequel trilogy. Maybe that's why I remember so many more of the names. God, even the Immolation song when Anakin's just burning
Yeah.
up. That yeah, uh, just yeah.
So you
I
go in S.
as
Good.
honestly, I would put it up ahead of
A New
those.
Hope.
A New Hope, at
Oh man,
least.
that's tough. Because I
That's
feel
tough.
like A
I
New Hope
know.
is like that's the standard. Like I feel like
But I
it
think the
created the
standard was
Star Wars
beat.
music.
I think the standard was beat by Revenge of the Sith. I don't think Empire Strikes Back loses it completely to Revenge of the Sith. But man, Revenge of the Sith, when you watch it and you get into it, right, it gets you. Just that music is so transportative. Like when you
It
really,
is. It's
yeah,
great. I mean, I completely agree with everything. I just think A New Hope won an Oscar. Is the only one that's won an Oscar out of
yeah,
all
that's
these.
true. That's
It's like
true.
created the Star Wars music that every other movie uses. I just have a hard time putting it like I feel like technically it should be first, but I'm okay with putting Empire Strikes Back because it takes everything this one does and does it better and adds the Imperial March. uh, but this is still like the forebearer. I don't know. I think we'll leave it like this for now, and
Yeah,
maybe at the end come back and
fair
really
enough.
look at
Fair
it
enough.
and see how the rest of these all shake out. Because to me, the Clone Wars is the first one I would put in D, and I think
D.
Kevin Kiner's score is great in the show. But when you watch the movie, for some reason, there's some weird experimental like guitar riffs and stuff in it. Like there's some weird tracks, and I would say it's the only one out of all these that I never listened to, only when I watch the movie. Uh,
Yeah.
and he does such a great job of emulating John Williams in the shows, in Rebels and in Clone Wars. But I don't know, the score in the movie just to me is a little weird. It's off.
I can't remember any of it. So maybe
And
a little like hints at like the Ahsoka, Dooku, and then eventually Anakin stuff that happens outside of Jabba's palace. But Kevin Kiner has done far better. It's not like something
yeah,
where Williams is like, oh, this film wasn't as strong as the others, but for anybody else, that would be like a career best, right? This is just like,
right.
Kevin Kiner definitely has leagues and levels ahead of this.
I haven't watched this movie actually in probably 4 or 5 years, but I remember the last time I watched it, it really stuck out to me how weird the music was, and that was, like, one of the main things I still remember from watching it that long ago. So, I'm gonna say I think that's probably my least favorite Star Wars score. I'll put it in D. The
D. It's a D.
Yeah, okay. The Force Awakens. So this was one that I remember watching it the first time and being like, "I like that, but I'm not sure if I loved it." This one has grown on me. I think this is one of the best Star Wars scores now, and a lot of the reasons are similar to A New Hope. It creates a lot of great themes that are used over and over again across all 3 movies, and I think the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, John Williams makes the conscious decision to play a lot of the same themes over again, where in the prequels, he does a lot of innovative new music every episode. He does still carry over themes in the prequels, but it's rarer and he creates a lot of new themes versus the sequels and the original trilogy. He keeps evolving those themes as the characters evolve. I think with Ray's theme, the Resistance theme, First Order theme slash Kylo Ren's theme, all of those are really good. I think I would put this in A.
Because I'm on that same boat that when I watched it, there were a few things that were like, oh, that's sick, but I wasn't like taken away from like obviously Ray's theme. That's just it's so good. It's one of the best intro themes of any character. When they land right on Jakku and right after the opening theme, I think that's probably one of the strongest music to just start off since episode. I mean, it was the episode 3 and then episode 7 happened when you think about it in live action film. So that was
Mhm.
back to back bangers in that sense. I would want to put it as a B. I think I would push it as a B plus, better than Return of the Jedi. I don't know if I'd put it as an A, but I do. The Resistance theme is good. I'll put it as a B plus for now. I think it can go up. I think it's one of the few that could go up.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause see, I would say I like it better than Attack of the Clones, but I'll give you this one since you gave me A New Hope. Like, I'll put it I think we could
Yeah.
compromise on there. But yeah, I think for me personally, I would put it behind Phantom Menace, but ahead of Attack of the Clones. But all right, let's move on to Rogue One, which actually I think is one of the most underrated Star Wars scores. Michael Giacchino was this is the first person besides Kevin Kiner to do a live action Star Wars film besides John Williams, and that was a big task. If some of you don't remember, Alexander Desplat was originally supposed to do the score, and then left the project about 6 weeks before the movie came out. And Michael Giacchino wrote the entire score in that time for this movie. I remember it getting kind of criticized when the movie came out, but I think there's some really, really great themes here. I actually listened to this one quite a bit, more so than I listened to some of these other Disney movies scores. So I don't know if I would either put it at the bottom of B behind Return of the Jedi or at the top of C if we wanted to put a movie and be our first one in C.
This is a tough one because knowing that he only had 4.5 weeks to do this, it sounds incredible for 4.5
Yeah.
weeks. Like I would not be able to touch even one song's worth of that. That being said, I've heard better from him. No Way Home was better in some parts, but a lot of that
Up,
is from the Danny Elfman and all that. Up, I've been
my
really
favorite.
into the Batman theme.
Yeah.
That all the songs after that have been playing on repeat for me.
The Incredibles.
God, yeah, he's done far better. But once they kind of get to the rebellion, it's good. It's really good. I loved everything with Krennic. I love everything that comes out of just the Imperial presence. I mm, oh, this one's a tough one. I because I like the I'm trying to think which one is it. literal Rogue One theme when they literally call themselves
Yeah,
as Rogue One. It's like ta-da! It just gives you like a little bit of
it's a
like
good
a
one.
New Hope joy. The Imperial suite that he does is really good.
Hmm.
Jyn Erso's suite is really good. Hope, your father
Yeah,
would be. Everything at the end is
yeah,
elite in my mind.
all the Scarif
It, but
stuff.
it, but I think it takes a while to get there. So I'll give it a C.
Last Jedi. So the Last Jedi, I don't know if I could pick out one particular theme that I think is incredible in The Last Jedi, but there's one called The Supremacy. And it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It's the scene nobody else likes. It's when Leia's floating in space. And the main reason I like that scene is because John Williams does Leia's theme slowly with piano. And I think the combination of seeing that scene, Carrie Fisher had passed away over a year before we saw it. This was the last time we were seeing her perform in the film. That really struck me. And so for the Last Jedi has always kind of held a special place in my heart for that theme, that score. But I don't know if I could say it's a better score overall than The Force Awakens. I could see it being better than Return of the Jedi. I think it's right around there for me, but I definitely couldn't say it's better than Force Awakens because Force Awakens just created basically all these themes that were reused in this one. And then my favorite part, my favorite piece of music is reused from A New Hope. It's just remixed in a different way. So I still think it's a great score, but I don't think it's any higher than B for me.
Look, it's a polarizing film. It really is. Both of us like it a lot more than a lot of other people do, flaws and all. We have critiques that I think a lot of people just ignore about the film because they're already hating on some of the stuff that is more clickbaity and stuff like that. But I think the one thing we are in attune with the rest of the fandom is that this is kind of like the start of the decline of John Williams for me when it comes to Star Wars because this is a hot take. I think he was in better form for the prequels than he was for the original trilogy. I know, I know. A New Hope has some really amazing stuff. Empire Strikes Back has still some of the best ever Force related music, but I don't find Return of the Jedi unique or fun. I think he takes some unique things and it pushes it into that, and that's what makes it great. And The Force Awakens is great. Rey's theme, everything. It was a perfect return. Last Jedi is kind of has like the same Rogue One effect, where it's the songs at the end are better. Like I love the Last Jedi. I love the Battle of Crate. I love the Spark. Peace and Purpose. God, it goes. It really goes. Um, it's just like I'm maybe I'm one of the few people who just loves how Luke's ending really mirrored the beginning of his story, like the real beginning, not the first time we see him. But again, it's a little like you're talking about the supremacy. I don't even really think about that track. It's like it has like a couple of cool few seconds and like the Leia stuff, but that's kind of playing off what's already been there. So when I think of like what's unique and great about it, that's stuff that kind of only starts after the sacred text music, and that takes a while to get there. That's when Yoda shows up, like I want to say 2 hours into the film, right? So it's pretty late on. It has a banging ending, but other than the visuals outplay it so much more than the music does. The acting outplays the music so much more. John Williams, at points throughout the Star Wars saga, outplays every single element that's on screen. He doesn't really do that here ever until maybe the end, but even then, the performances and the visuals are neck and neck at the very least. So I would give it a C plus.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I would put it. You're putting it ahead of Rogue One, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I'll put it ahead of Rogue One as well. I think I had it. Might have personally put it in B, but I would have put it behind Return of the Jedi. So Solo, it's another good score. I think it's for me, it's not as impactful as Rogue One. If we're looking at the non-John Williams scores, this was John Powell that scored this one. John Williams' theme that he wrote for Han Solo is the best part of this movie. but again, it's music that I think works well in the film, but I don't really ever go back to any of the themes in this. I would put it ahead of Clone Wars in the front of D.
I can't. Adventures of Han is so good. More people need to listen to that. But it also has chicken in the pot, and that's such a good song. Literally
I
made half of
I
my video off of that.
yeah, I do love my
Uh,
Luleo Primic.
jeez. When we see the Millennium Falcon for the first time, that beautiful score, I love that. I do like the flying with Chewie when like they're finally sat together, and it's like that's when you're like, whoa, it's the duo. It's like they're really like this is the start of it. Like I love that. But yeah, it's not better than Rogue One or The Last Jedi, so it's a D plus.
Okay, and I could put it at the bottom of C as well if you
C
wanted to do
minus.
that, but
I'll do C minus. I think there's still
okay.
a big gap. Yeah.
I think yeah, the Clone Wars to me is easily the weakest. The Rise of Skywalker, I'm going back and forth where to put the Rise of Skywalker, but it's similar to Solo for me. I think it doesn't really have any tracks that I go back to and go, yeah, that's the one. I don't know if I can even name you a track from the Rise of Skywalker. Unfortunately, it's a good score. It's a good Star Wars score. It works well with the film, but again, nothing too standout-ish. I'm going back and forth whether I would put it either behind Solo or right in front of Solo. Still, it's got the John Williams tracks, even though I can't name a particular track here where I can with the Solo Star Wars story. I think just the fact that it's a pure John Williams score, I get caught up in the music a bit more while I'm watching the film than I do with Solo. But again, I'm I'm not really partial to where to put it, but I think it is the weakest by far of all of the Skywalker saga.
Hot take. I think it's a B minus. I
Really?
really think I think it's a B minus.
Oh,
Because I can name several. Um, Especially the one where Rey's looking up into the sky after Palpatine's electrocuted everyone. The Force is with you. That simple piano work. Just it's so transportative for me. Oh God, I love that. I also love the ending music, the new home for the lightsabers. Even if Anakin would probably be held back by Luke and Leia screaming that his lightsaber has been buried in sand. The one thing that he hates the most. Um, I think I actually love the Rise of Skywalker and the Journey Exegol. Those just I know the film just it's way too fast. If the film had another 15 minutes, I think people would be looking at this film in a lot different of a light because a lot of that beginning stuff that was necessary, where we could have seen Palpatine or at least heard his voice in the galaxy, stuff like that, I think would have been pretty awesome. Um, yeah, it's I because I don't know if it's because uh I like it more than The Force Awakens at times. I know that's another hot take. I like the movie more than The
so
Force
well,
Awakens
okay,
at
the
times.
movie, but
Uh,
not the score. The score is not
no,
better
not
than
the score. I don't think the score is better. I don't think the score is better than The Force Awakens. Um, I like the movie more because even if it isn't so much more unique than The Force Awakens, it feels a lot more unexpected. And I think a big issue that I have with how the score is done in the movies is that a lot of it's just chopped up because the editing of the Rise of Skywalker is so haphazard at times that some of the best stuff you don't really hear unless you listen to it on your own. But I think it's a B minus. I think just those cues, I think I would fight for a B minus. It's better than The Last Jedi for me. It really is.
man.
Because it's more spread out too. And I can remember things from like every single point.
Man, that's tough. Uh, for me, it's not even close to The Last Jedi for me, in my opinion. Oh, but I'd be willing to compromise if you wanted to put it there. Can we move The
I
Force
think a
Awakens up to A?
I think a fair compromise is to move uh The Last Jedi behind Return of the Jedi and then uh have Rise of Skywalker. I could put it behind The Last Jedi. As long as they're both on the same level, because I think The Last Jedi for me is that there's so many things that when I watched them, like a lot of the race trainings music felt really
Mhm.
cool to me when I first heard it, but I don't go back to it. Versus like a lot of like even the sillier things y-
Mhm.
um feel stronger for me when I go back to the score. Like even just using the Attack of the Clones music, in Kijima, when Poe's talking to his one friend, like I don't know. I think if Williams was truly allowed to have his score shine in the film, they would be a lot more memorable, but because they're so cut up, you don't really remember them as much. But there
Right.
are there it's spread out far better than I won't say better than The Force Awakens, but it's close enough to me in my mind.
Oof, man.
Yeah.
I can we move the Force Awakens to A? I feel
Yeah,
like they should be on a
I
significantly
can
like
do
the
that. I can do that. Yeah.
okay. Then I'm good
Yeah.
with this. I think because to me, The Force Awakens is significantly better than The Last
Yeah.
Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker scores, like
Yeah.
significantly better. But The Rise of Skywalker, that's interesting. That's an interesting choice because I thought I did actually think you were gonna put it down here, but I think like I I have a higher opinion of The Last Jedi too, kind of similar reasons for why you're talking about The Rise of Skywalker. Just like certain tracks just really work for me, and I think that's why it's all so subjective, the music and film in general. So, yeah. So, what do you guys think of our list? Let us know down in the comments below. This is how we've rated them. Well, let us know how you'd rank them down in the comments below, which tier you'd put them in, or just the order you'd rank them in. Let us know. Give us a like, please. It helps us with the YouTube algorithm. And subscribe to the channel for Star Wars content 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.